Well, welcome to Sports. I am Chidiebere Ezani. Well, it's been an exciting weekend in the world of the World Cup, and Nigeria unfortunately fell to Croatia by 2-0 at the end of the day, and we will be reviewing that game this morning, as well as having our correspondent Promise Efoghe join us from St. Petersburg, where he is in Russia. I won't be doing this alone this morning. I'll be having Azizat and Mike join me.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a disappointing performance from Nigeria. A lot of expectations, and unfortunately, we could not just cut it against against Croatia.
Absolutely. It was very sad seeing the boys fly out like that, especially when they gave a lackluster performance in the first half. You know, people expected a lot from them. But then seeing Igalo alone in front, and then Mikel Obi, that we are used to seeing playing defensive midfield, was now playing attacking midfield. Many Nigerians knew from that point that a lot was going to happen, but not in favor of the Super Eagles.
Well, on the other hand, there seemed to be so much of confidence going into the game. Now, Nigeria had a lot
built on the beauty of the kit.
Yeah.
But the kit,
you know, the kit, Nigerian kit has been rated to be the best in the tournament.
Yeah.
And then number 2, the Nigerian team is set to be the youngest team. So going into this into the tournament, there was this issue of all eyes on us, and all of that. So, and then the other factor is the pig.
Oh.
The pig
Let's
factor.
leave the pig. Let's leave the pig.
Yeah,
we'll get to the review. We'll get to the review of that particular game. But let's have Promise Efoghe join us this morning. Promise, can you hear us?
Barry, I also heard Mike talking about the pig.
Leave the pig alone. Promise, leave the pig alone.
Big pig.
Well, let's start with some of the surprises from the weekend before we go in depth to the Nigerian game. We saw another defending champion, you know, lose their first game in the next World Cup, Germany. What was that all about? I promise you have the opportunity to be in Russia. What's the atmosphere like with this particular loss to a team like Germany?
Well, I think this will be a World Cup of surprises. Before the World Cup kicked off, I think I was discussing with a couple of colleagues, and I said the Germans may not just be able to defend the World Cup this time because a couple of teams may have found their mojo. Well, for the German fans here, they are so disappointed. I saw a couple of them shortly after the game. Mexico was a team no one thought would upset the Germans, especially in the first game of the World Cup. The Germans, we know the players, the likes of Mesut Ozil, the likes of Khedira. I mean, quality players who play in bigger clubs in Europe. Against the Mexico team, prior to the game, the Germans were celebrating. Perhaps they thought the game was already won and dusted before kickoff. But in the end, the machines were humbled, 1-0. But then it is the first game of the tournament. They have 2 more games to play. I still think Germany will go through that group. It can't be that bad for Germany not to go through their group. But then when you take your mind back in 2002, when France, as defending champion, lost all 3 games in the group stage, then maybe some Germans may have some cause to worry.
You know, we were going to leave the pig alone, but then an elephant actually predicted that Germany was going to be out in the first round. So
you see?
Some of these animals,
are deciding deciding the games now.
Yeah, Mike, let's talk about the game. A lot of people felt Neymar was a little bit of a showboat yesterday.
Absolutely.
Wasn't helping the team. And of course, that spectacular coiler from Felipe Coutinho. But that Brazilian team, they looked shaped, you know, they were shaped to excel, but they couldn't just cut it against the second half performance.
They had everything going on for them. I think they lost when it comes to the issue of tactic, the final tactic, and putting them against their opponent. They couldn't really scale through. But I promise, let me bring you in here. When it comes to the big teams that the world was looking forward to, Argentina drew their match, Germany lost their first match, Brazil drew their match. The only powerhouse which really lived up to expectation was Portugal, winning their match, as the case may be. What is really going on with the big teams there? Why are the mighty falling, if you have to say, even though this is not the conclusion yet, but one way or the other, everyone was expecting them to perform beyond where they performed?
Well, the mighty teams haven't fallen yet. It could just be a minor slip. The loss for Germany, the draw for Spain, of course, the draw for Brazil. I think these are just wake-up calls for these teams to know that other teams who found their way to Russia are not here to look at the pretty ladies, are not here to look at the beaches, but are here for business. And so this certainly will wake these teams up to know that they really have to up the ante. They really have to live up to the hype. They really have to live up to the billing. And they are favorites, and they must show that not just on the pages of newspapers, but on the pitch.
Promise, still talking about the defending champions, the German machines, really, would you really say that they didn't perform? After all, they had more than 20 goals on target. They were just shooting the ball. Unfortunately, they didn't get the back of the net of Mexico. That, in fact, at the end of the day, even Hernandez was crying. But then, would you say that they didn't perform? Talking about the Germans.
Well, a hunter who shoots more than 50 bullets and fails to hit target, fails to take home an animal, is not a good hunter. It doesn't matter how many shots you have on target. It doesn't matter how many percentage of possession you have. In football, what is most important is the 3 point. What helps you win? A game is you scoring the goals. When you don't get the goals, you don't win games. And so for the Germans, it was a shambolic performance, regardless the tiki-taka, regardless the possession, regardless the effort. Look at the Nigerian team. A lot of efforts were made, but in the end, it was a 2-0 loss.
Was there really efforts indeed? But let's go to the Nigerian game now and concentrate. Let's talk about the Nigerian team now. A lot of expectations, just like Mike said, the youngest team, flamboyant, jerseys and all that. But we saw an abysmal performance, lackluster, if you call it that. We expected a whole lot, but falling short, I don't know. What's the mood like in the camp with the players before you left Katerinburg?
Well, I don't know what your expectations were, Chidebere, but my expectations were not high at all. Wow. If you monitored the friendly games the Eagles played, I think I wasn't expecting too much from the Nigerian team, considering the caliber of teams we are to face in the group stage. Well, you talked about the beautiful jersey. I don't have one yet. Yes, perhaps the most beautiful jersey here at the World Cup. Mike talked about the team being the youngest. Well, I don't know if they're actually the youngest. Well, on paper and on their passport pages, they might be the youngest. But in the true essence of things, in real life situation, the Nigerian team is not the youngest. Don't let me go there now. But talking about the game against Croatia, for us here, not much were really. I saw the Eagles train. I saw the Croatian team train. You look at the Nigerian team, made up of a bunch of players I would describe as average, playing against a Croatian team that has Luka Modric, that has Perisic, Mandzukic. These are guys who play regularly for big clubs in Europe. It's difficult to want to think that the Eagles can equate the performance of the Croatians.
But then looking at how that match played out, the Super Eagles actually held their own well, if not on one side, of course, that the coach played almost all the players out of position.
I was coming to that, Azizat. Your submission is not in tandem with that of Chidebere, who said the Eagles had a shambolic show. I think it was the result that was shambolic. The performance, despite the fact that we paraded average players, was fair in my reckoning, because that game, if not for those defensive errors we made, perhaps would have ended in a goalless draw. It was an own goal first from Etebo, and then that penalty, which was caused by our own defender. And so you talked about the coach playing our players out of position. Yes, I really don't understand why Mikel would play in an advanced role. Mikel has played the most part of his career as a defensive midfielder. I don't understand why you have an Iwobi who is versatile, who is sharp, who is young, who is fleet-footed, who can spot passes, and you throw him to the flanks. I don't understand. As a matter of fact, I think even Eteba, who played deep on that day, will play better in that advanced role than Mikel.
Exactly.
I thought Ekelechi Iheanacho, who was on the bench, should perhaps have started that game. Mikel is the captain, but of course he's way above the 30 years mark. Well, on paper, on his passport, maybe 29. But
Promise, we're looking at time. We're looking at time, but let me ask you this. With all of these errors here and there, one way or the other, is the strategy likely to change going into the next game with Iceland?
Well, I don't think so, because we played 5 friendly matches. If the tactics would change, maybe it would have changed before the first game. I mean, Gernot Rohr has been experimenting. I wrote an article this morning, and the question was, how long will Gernot Rohr keep experimenting with the Nigerian team? If you experimented during the friendlies, not at the World Cup, please. I mean, with the bunch of players we have seen over time that a 3-5-2 formation is best for our team, not a 4-2-3-1. And I thought playing with full backs and three central defenders have been working for us. He used that against England in the second half and we had a better result. I thought he would have gone into the tournament proper with a 3-5-2 formation, but he started with a 4-2-3-1, which, I mean, didn't work out for us, with especially placing players in their wrong positions.
But playing the 3-5-2-1 might just eliminate the skipper of the side. That's talking about Mikel, and you don't want to alienate your skipper.
You're emotional.
The most important thing is the result. That's it. I don't mind. I mean, Belgium dropped Nainggolan. Nainggolan is one of the best midfielders in the world. But for the coach, he felt at this point in time, he needs certain players that will give him the results.
But then, Promise, some people expected Neymar to have been subbed as well, that it wasn't in the game yesterday for Brazil as well, but the coach didn't remove him.
Well, sometimes these coaches have too much respect for certain players, which don't pay off in the end of the day. What happened yesterday for Brazil? 1-1. For a team that, I mean, is touted to be one of the favorites, a team who many think should be able to win the World Cup this year, starting the tournament 1-1 against Switzerland. That's it.
All right, I promise as we end now, all the animals are saying
what we get to the animals.
Yeah,
now.
let's get to the animals. All the animals are saying different things,
but
as the case may be. But
the pig said Nigeria will get to the semi-final.
Yes.
Didn't predict us winning the first match.
Winning the first match.
We can still win Argentina.
So how are the animals motivating the boys in the camps? Please let us know.
At this point in time, I don't think the Super Eagles will care about any animal right now. What is in the back of their mind is how they can go around the curve against Iceland. I think Iceland would even be a tougher opponent than the Croatian, because they play direct football. They don't care. I mean, they come at you with some. I mean, they are very resolute at the back, and they come at you with some very crazy counterattacks. But talking about the animals, well, I guess the next animal that will predict will be some fishes in the river. I don't know. These animals are not getting it right. Pigs are very dirty, and I wonder why a pig had to predict the Nigerian game. Come on.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. I promise. Thank you so much for your time. Have a fantastic time. Well, before I go, it's a very pressured one for Nigeria. We have to win against Iceland to have any kind of hope, and hope that Argentina and Croatia would actually, play out another draw. We already started the permutations.
This is where we always push ourselves.
We already started the permutations.
We push ourselves to box ourselves somewhere, and then we begin to pray for permutations not to favor the next person. When they are praying for that as well.
Absolutely.
So everyone needs to come on the table with its own strategy to
bring
win.
your game on.
So let's see how the next game is going
personally, I do feel Nigeria have what it takes to beat Argentina. I don't think Gernot Rohr will make the same mistake again.
Igalo is complaining already, being the only one at the front. Just something about it.
But Nigeria has to win the next two
matches. Well, not necessarily. We might just need a win and a draw.
Let's see how it goes anyway.
Well, that's all on sports. Up next is the weather report from major cities across Nigeria.